The breakroom door swung open. Elias froze. His legs stopped working. His lungs forgot how to pull air. His brain shut down completely. Because what he was seeing couldn't be real. His 6-month-old son, Milo, was cradled in someone's arms. Not just held. Not just rocked. He was nursing. Latched onto a woman's breast. Feeding. And that woman was Liora Chen. His boss. Time didn't just slow down. It shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces that cut him from the inside out. The hum of the old refrigerator became a roar in his ears. The flickering fluorescent light above felt like a strobe in a nightmare. His hands went completely numb. His throat closed so tight he thought he might choke. This isn't happening. This can't be happening. But it was. Milo's tiny fists were clutched against Leora's blouse. His little fingers curled and uncurled in that way babies do when they're completely content. His eyes were half closed, peaceful, lost in that milk-drunk haze that Elias hadn't seen in 3 months. 3 months of hell. 3 months of his son screaming at every bottle. 3 months of watching those chubby cheeks hollow out. 3 months of doctor visits and failed formulas and sleepless nights on the kitchen floor begging God for an answer. And here was his answer. Nursing from his boss. Hi, welcome to Heart Voice Stories. Thanks for watching. Kindly tell me what country you're watching from in the comments below. Leora's eyes lifted slowly. She didn't jerk away. Didn't scramble to cover up. Didn't even look surprised that he'd walked in. She just looked at him. And the expression on her face broke something deep inside his chest. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't shame. It was sorrow. Raw, ancient, bone-deep sorrow. Elias, she whispered. Her voice was so soft it barely made it across the small room. I can explain. But he couldn't hear her. Not really. His ears were ringing too loud. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his teeth. Questions exploded in his mind like fireworks in a war zone. How long has this been happening? Why didn't she tell me? What kind of person does something like this? What kind of person am I for not grabbing my son and running? Because that's what terrified him most. He wasn't running. He was standing there, staring at his baby boy, watching him do something Elias had been praying for since the day the bottle stopped working. Milo was eating. For the first time in 93 days of pure hell, his son was actually eating. And the relief that crashed through Elias's body was so powerful it made his knees buckle. He grabbed the doorframe to stay upright. Leora adjusted Milo gently, supporting his head with the kind of care that only comes from practice. The baby didn't even stir. Didn't unlatch. His breathing stayed slow and even, his body completely relaxed. Healthy. Alive. Thriving. Elias felt tears burn hot behind his eyes. Please, Leora said again. Sit down. Let me explain. He wanted to scream. He wanted to grab Milo and run out of this building and never come back. He wanted to call someone, anyone, the police, a lawyer, a priest, someone who could tell him what the hell he was supposed to do with this. But his legs were shaking so badly he couldn't move. So he did the only thing he could do. He stepped inside. He closed the door behind him. And he sat down. Because deep down, beneath the shock and the horror and the 1,000 questions tearing him apart, there was one truth he couldn't ignore. His son was eating. And for a father who'd spent 3 months watching his child waste away, that changed everything. It started so small Elias almost missed it. Milo refused a bottle. Just once. One Tuesday afternoon. Elias thought nothing of it. Babies had their moods, right? Their preferences. Sarah, his wife, had planned to breastfeed for at least a year before the car accident took her 2 weeks after Milo was born. 2 weeks. 14 days of being a mother before a drunk driver ran a red light and stole everything. But Elias pushed that thought down. He had to. There was a baby to feed and bills to pay and a life to somehow keep moving. One refused bottle became 2. Then 5. Then every single one. Elias tried everything a desperate father could think of. He bought different bottles. Slow flow, fast flow, angled, straight, glass, plastic, the expensive ones from Europe that cost $40 each. He tried different formulas. Regular. Sensitive stomach. Hypoallergenic. Goat milk. The fancy organic kind that came in gold cans and cost more than his car payment. He tried different temperatures. Room temperature, warm, cold, straight from the fridge. He tried different positions. Cradle hold, football hold, sitting up, lying down. He tried different rooms, different times of day, different lighting. He sang lullabies until his voice went hoarse. He rocked Milo for hours until his arms felt like dead weight. He drove around at 2 in the morning with the baby screaming in the back seat, praying that motion would somehow flip a switch in his son's brain. Nothing worked. Nothing. The pediatrician ran test after test. Tongue tie. Negative. Acid reflux? Maybe here's some medicine. Milk allergy? Possibly try this other formula. They prescribed medications that made Milo scream even harder. They suggested a feeding therapist with a 6-month waiting list. Just keep trying, they said, like Elias wasn't already bleeding out from the effort. Week 3, Milo started losing weight. 4 ounces at first. Then 8. Then 12. His chubby cheeks started to hollow out. His thighs got thinner. His onesies hung loose on his tiny frame. Every time Elias changed his diaper, he could see more ribs. He was watching his son starve in slow motion. And there was nothing he could do to stop it. Work became impossible. How could he focus on data analysis and client reports when his baby was dying? He started showing up late, eyes bloodshot from no sleep, shirt wrinkled because he'd worn it 2 days straight. He took emergency calls in the parking lot with Milo screaming in the backseat. His performance reviews started slipping. His boss noticed. That boss was Liora Chen. She was the regional director. 38 years old, brilliant with numbers, quiet in a way that made people nervous. She rarely smiled. Rarely talked about her personal life. She ran her team with high standards but never cruelty. People respected her. Some feared her. But with Elias, something was different. She started appearing during his parking lot crisis calls. Not saying much. Just standing nearby with 2 cups of coffee. She'd hand him one without a word. Once, she brought him a printed list of pediatric specialists. A friend recommended these, she said softly. They might help. He was too exhausted to question it. Another time, she found him in his car during lunch, head on the steering wheel, Milo screaming himself purple in the car seat. She knocked on the window. Come inside, she said. I'll hold him while you eat something. You don't have to. I know. She took Milo into her office. The baby still wouldn't eat, but he stopped screaming when she held him. For 20 minutes, Elias sat in the break room and ate a sandwich and felt like a human being. He never asked why Leora helped. He was too desperate to care. By month 2, the pediatrician used words like hospitalization and feeding tube. Those words felt like a death sentence. Elias stopped sleeping completely. Stopped eating most days. He became a ghost haunting his own life, watching his son fade away, powerless to save him. And through it all, Leora was there. Quiet. Steady. Helping in small ways that felt like oxygen. He should have asked why. But he didn't. He just kept drowning. 3:47 a.m. The kitchen floor was cold against Elias's back. He didn't remember lying down. Didn't remember when he'd given up trying to sit upright. His body had just collapsed under the weight of everything, and now he was here, flat on the tile, staring at the ceiling with Milo screaming in his arms. The baby's face was purple. His little body arched backward like something was torturing him from the inside. His cries weren't even cries anymore. They were raw, jagged shrieks that tore through the silent house like broken glass. The bottle lay on its side next to them. Formula pooled across the tile in a white puddle that looked like spilled milk. Spilled hope. Spilled failure. Please, Elias whispered. His voice cracked into pieces. Please, Milo. Please just eat. Please. But Milo couldn't hear him over his own screaming. Or maybe he could hear and just didn't care because his father was useless. Because Elias couldn't do the one thing fathers are supposed to do. The most basic thing in the world. Feed your child. He couldn't even do that. Tears blurred Elias's vision. His chest felt like someone had reached inside and crushed his lungs with both hands. Every breath hurt. Every heartbeat was agony. He pulled Milo closer, pressing the baby's sweaty little head against his chest, and he sobbed. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry, buddy. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help you. Milo's screams softened into exhausted whimpers. His tiny body trembled. His eyes, glassy and unfocused, stared at nothing. He was too tired to even cry anymore. That was worse somehow. The screaming meant he still had fight in him. The silence meant he was giving up. Elias thought about Sarah. If she were here, none of this would be happening. She'd know exactly what to do. She'd have the answer. She'd scoop Milo up and everything would just work because she was his mother and mothers know things that fathers don't. She'd have milk. The thought stabbed through him like a knife to the gut. That's what Milo needed. Breast milk. The one thing Elias's body couldn't give. The one thing no formula on earth could truly replace no matter what the labels promised. He tried to find donor milk. The official milk bank had a 3-month waiting list and cost a fortune. He joined Facebook groups where mothers sold extra milk. One woman offered to help, then disappeared. Another asked for money up front and ghosted him. He'd even considered asking his sister-in-law, but she lived 8 states away and had her own baby to feed. He was alone. Completely, terrifyingly alone. Milo's whimpers faded into shallow, shaky breaths. His tiny hand curled against Elias's chest, fingers barely holding on. His eyes started to close, not from peace but from pure exhaustion. He looked so small, so fragile, so breakable. "I'm failing you," Elias whispered into the dark kitchen. "Your mom would hate me for this. She'd hate me for not being enough." He thought about the funeral. About standing over Sarah's casket with 2-week-old Milo in his arms, making promises he was now breaking. "I'll take care of him. I'll protect him. I'll be everything he needs." Lies. All lies. Because here he was, 3 months later, watching his son waste away while he lay helpless on a kitchen floor at 4 in the morning. The house was so quiet now. Just Milo's ragged breathing and Elias's broken sobs and the hum of the refrigerator that sounded like the universe mocking him. He didn't sleep that night. Or the next night. Or the one after that. By day 60 of this nightmare, Elias had forgotten what rest felt like. He moved through life like a zombie. Hollow. Empty. Running on nothing but fear and desperation and the tiny spark of hope that refused to die no matter how much evidence proved it was pointless. At work, he'd started keeping Milo in the car during meetings. Leora found out and offered her office instead. "At least there's air conditioning," she'd said. "And I can watch him while you focus." "I saw you struggling with Milo," she said. "I saw him losing weight. I saw the panic in your eyes every single day. I saw you dying inside and I thought about Maya. About all that milk I wasted. About how I would have given anything, done anything, to use it to save a child." She looked directly at him now, her eyes raw and red. "3 weeks ago you fell asleep in your car during lunch. Milo was screaming. I took him inside to give you peace. And I held him and I looked at his face and I just..." Her voice broke completely. "I just tried. I don't know why. Desperation, instinct, insanity. I tried." And he latched immediately, Elias. Like he'd been waiting his whole life for it. The room spun. Elias gripped the edge of the table to keep from falling. His boss had been nursing his son. For 3 weeks. Without permission. Without consent. Saving his life. Silence filled the break room like water flooding a sinking ship. Elias couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Could barely breathe. Leora stood there holding his sleeping son, tears streaming down her face, her entire body trembling with the weight of what she'd just confessed. "I've been relactating," she said, her voice shaking. "It's not easy to restart milk production years after losing a child. But it's possible. With the right herbs, medications, pumping every 2 hours around the clock. I've been doing it for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Elias's voice cracked. "You've been planning this for 6 weeks? "Not planning. Trying. Hoping. I didn't know if it would work. I didn't know if Milo would even take it. But I had to try because I couldn't." She stopped, covering her mouth with one hand while the other supported Milo's sleeping form. "I couldn't watch another baby die when I had the power to save him." The words hit Elias like a freight train. Another baby die. That's what she thought was happening. That's what she saw every time she looked at Milo. Not just a struggling infant. A dying child. Like Maya. "Every day you came into work more broken," Leora continued, her words tumbling out now like a dam had burst. "Every day Milo looked thinner. I watched you beg doctors for answers. I watched you try every formula, every bottle, every desperate solution. And nothing worked." She looked down at the sleeping baby in her arms. "I knew what you were going through because I lived it. I watched Maya fade for 11 days and there was nothing I could do. The milk came in 2 days after she died, Elias. 2 days. My body was ready to feed her and she was already gone. Do you know what that feels like?" Her voice rose, raw with pain. "To have exactly what your dying child needs and not be able to give it to them? To feel your body betray you in the cruelest possible way?" Elias's throat closed completely. "So when I held Milo that day and he was screaming and you were passed out from exhaustion in your car, I acted on instinct. I thought maybe, just maybe, he'd take it. And he did. God help me, he did." She sank into a chair, still cradling Milo. "I told myself I'd tell you the next day, then the next, then the next. But every morning you came in looking more alive, more hopeful." Milo was gaining weight. His color was coming back. "And I kept thinking, what if I tell you and you take him away and he stops eating again? What if my confession kills him? So you just kept doing it?" Elias asked, his voice hollow. "Yes, I kept doing it. I violated every boundary. Every law probably. Every ethical standard I've ever held. I became someone I don't even recognize." She looked at him with eyes that had seen the bottom of grief. "I could lose my job for this. You could press charges. I don't even know what I'd be charged with. But I'd do it again, Elias. Even knowing all of this, I'd do it again. Because that baby in my arms is alive and thriving, and 3 weeks ago he was dying. Her voice dropped to a broken whisper. I couldn't save Maya. But I could save Milo. And for a mother who's lost everything, that math is simple. Elias stared at her. This woman who'd terrified new employees with her sharp intelligence and high standards. This woman who never showed weakness, never shared her personal life, never let anyone see past her professional armor. She'd just laid herself completely bare. For his son. Why didn't you just offer? He asked quietly. Why not come to me and say you could help? Leora let out a broken laugh. Would you have said yes? If your boss walked up and said, hey, I can breastfeed your baby, would you have agreed? Or would you have reported me to HR and gotten a restraining order? He opened his mouth to argue. Then closed it. Because she was right. If she'd asked, he would have thought she was insane. Dangerous. Inappropriate. He would have run. But now, seeing Milo healthy and sleeping peacefully, seeing the evidence of what her secret had accomplished, he didn't know what to think. I'm sorry, Leora whispered. I'm so sorry. Not for saving him. But for lying to you. For taking away your choice. For betraying your trust. She carefully stood and walked toward him, holding Milo out. Take him. He's yours. I won't fight you. Do whatever you need to do. Call whoever you need to call. I'll accept the consequences. Elias looked at his son. At those full cheeks. That healthy color. That peaceful sleep. Then he looked at the woman who'd given up her dignity, her privacy, her career, everything, to save a child that wasn't even hers. And he made a choice that terrified him. Dr. Reeves leaned back in her office chair and steepled her fingers. She'd listened to everything without interrupting. Every impossible detail. Every uncomfortable truth. Her face had remained completely neutral the entire time. Now the silence in her office felt like it could crush them both. Elias sat on one side, hands gripping his knees, waiting for judgment. Leora sat on the other, arms wrapped around herself, waiting for condemnation. Between them, in his carrier, Milo slept peacefully, completely unaware that his entire future hung in the balance. Let me make sure I understand, Dr. Reeves said finally. Miss Chen, you've been providing breast milk to Milo for 3 weeks without his father's knowledge or consent. Yes, Leora whispered. And you relactated specifically for this purpose. Yes. Have you been tested? Blood work? Screening for diseases, medications, anything that could harm an infant? Leora pulled papers from her bag with shaking hands. I got full panels done. HIV, hepatitis, everything. All negative. I'm not on any medications. I don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs. I documented everything. Dr. Reeves took the papers and reviewed them carefully. The silence stretched on forever. Elias felt like he might throw up. What if the doctor called child services? What if she reported them both? What if this whole nightmare got even worse? Under normal circumstances, Dr. Reeves said slowly, I would have serious concerns about consent, boundaries, and proper procedure. Elias's stomach dropped to his feet. However, she pulled up Milo's chart on her computer. 3 weeks ago this child was in crisis. He'd lost 1 pound, 2 ounces. That's significant for an infant his age. We were discussing hospitalization. Feeding tubes. Failure to thrive interventions. She turned the screen so they could both see. Today he's gained 1 pound, 4 ounces. His hydration markers are excellent. His muscle tone has improved. His developmental milestones, which were starting to slip, are back on track. Medically speaking, this child has made a remarkable recovery. She looked at them both. Breast milk from a healthy, properly screened donor is medically superior to formula, especially for infants with severe feeding aversions. Informal milk sharing happens more often than people realize. Usually through Facebook groups and online forums with far less vetting than what apparently happened here. So this is okay? Elias asked, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't say that. Dr. Reeves's tone was firm. What happened was irregular and violated standard protocols. But from a purely medical standpoint, your son is healthier now than he's been since birth. That is not insignificant. She closed the chart and looked directly at Elias. The question isn't whether what happened was conventional. The question is what happens next. Do you want to continue this arrangement? The weight of that question pressed down on Elias like a physical force. Continue letting his boss nurse his son. Navigate the judgment, the weirdness, the impossible social situation. Or go back to the nightmare. Back to screaming and starvation and watching Milo fade away. If I say no, he said quietly, what happens to Milo? Dr. Reeves didn't sugarcoat it. We go back to trying formulas. We might find one that works. We might not. If his weight drops again, hospitalization becomes necessary. Feeding tubes. Possible long-term developmental impacts from malnutrition. There are no guarantees. And if I say yes? Then we formalize this. Treat it like official donor milk sharing, which is legal with proper precautions. Ms. Chen continues getting regular health screenings. We document everything. We monitor Milo's progress closely. And when he's ready to wean, usually around 12 months, we transition him carefully. She looked at them both seriously. I can't tell you what to do. This is your choice as Milo's father. But I can tell you the medical facts. Right now, what's happening is working. Your son is thriving. Elias looked at Milo. At that peaceful sleeping face. Those healthy cheeks. That strong, steady breathing. Then he looked at Leora. At this woman who'd destroyed her own privacy, risked her career, and given everything to save a child she barely knew. I need time to think, he said. Take it, Dr. Reeves said gently. But not too long. Milo needs consistency. Abrupt changes could set him back. They left the office in silence. In the parking lot, Leora turned to him. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. If you want to stop, I'll step back completely. You'll never hear from me again outside of work. Elias looked at her. Really looked at her. This wasn't some crazy person. This was a grieving mother who'd found a way to turn her loss into life for someone else. If we do this, he said slowly, there are rules. Hope flickered in her eyes. Anything. Medical protocols. Regular testing. Boundaries. This doesn't make you his mother. I know. And when he's ready to wean, this ends. No arguments. Agreed. He took a shaky breath. Okay. Okay. Her voice broke. Okay. We do this right. By the book. Starting now. Leora's tears came fast and hard. Thank you. Don't thank me. I don't even know if this is right. I just know it's what Milo needs. And sometimes that's all a father has to hold on to. They sat in Elias's car in the parking lot. The engine was off. The windows were cracked just enough to let in the cool evening air. Milo slept peacefully in his car seat, completely unaware that the two adults around him were about to make a decision that would change everything. Elias gripped the steering wheel even though they weren't going anywhere. If I say yes to this, he started, his voice rough, what does that even look like? Leora stared straight ahead through the windshield. I don't know. This isn't something I planned. It just happened. Things like this don't just happen. No. She turned to face him. You're right. I made a choice. A reckless, boundary-destroying choice that I can't take back. I violated your trust in the worst possible way. Do you regret it? She was quiet for a long moment. Do you? She asked back. The question hung in the air between them like smoke. Elias looked at Milo in the rearview mirror. At those pink cheeks. At that steady, healthy breathing. At the son who was finally thriving. No, he admitted, and the word felt like both relief and terror. And that scares me more than anything else. Me too. Silence fell again. Outside, people walked to their cars. Normal people living normal lives, going home to normal families. Nobody looking at them. Nobody knowing that inside this ordinary car, two people were navigating something completely extraordinary. If we do this, Elias said slowly, carefully, there have to be rules. Real ones. Not just the medical stuff. I'm listening. He turned to face her fully. This doesn't make you his mother. Sarah was his mother. She'll always be his mother. This is just nutrition. Medical intervention. That's all. Leora's face flickered with something, pain maybe, but she nodded. I understand. And when he's old enough to wean, this ends. No extending it. No arguing. When the doctor says it's time, we're done. Agreed. And nobody can know. His voice dropped. Not coworkers. Not family. Not friends. This stays between us and Dr. Reeves. Of course. Because if people find out, he stopped, imagining the judgment. The accusations. The gossip. The way people would look at him, at her, at Milo. They won't understand. I know. He rubbed his face with both hands. This is insane. You know that, right? This whole situation is completely insane. Yes. I should be running. I should be taking Milo and never looking back. Yes. But I can't. His voice cracked. Because for 3 months I watched my son dying and I couldn't save him. And you did. You saved him when nobody else could. Tears burned in his eyes. What kind of father does that make me? That I'm even considering this? Leora reached out slowly, carefully, and put her hand on his arm. The touch was gentle. Not romantic. Just human. It makes you a father who loves his son more than his pride, she said softly. More than social expectations. More than what people might think. That's not weakness, Elias. That's the strongest thing a parent can do. He looked at her hand on his arm. At this woman who'd lost everything and somehow found a way to give anyway. Why did you really do this? He asked. The truth. She pulled her hand back and wrapped her arms around herself. Because when Maya died, I felt like I died with her. Like there was no point to anything anymore. My marriage fell apart. My body betrayed me. I existed but I wasn't alive. Her voice got quieter. And then I saw you with Milo. Saw you fighting so hard for him. Saw that desperation in your eyes that I knew too well. And for the first time in 6 years I felt something besides grief. I felt purpose. She looked at him with raw honesty. Saving Milo didn't bring Maya back. Nothing ever will. But it made her death mean something. It made all that pain and loss and milk that went to waste, it made it matter. Does that make sense? It did. God help him, it did. Okay, Elias said. Okay. We do this. But we do it right. Medical checkups every month. Documentation of everything. And the second Dr. Reeves says it's time to stop, we stop. Deal. They shook hands like they were signing a business contract. Except this wasn't business. This was two broken people agreeing to save a child together in the strangest way possible. As Elias started the car, one thought kept circling in his mind. This decision would either save them all or destroy everything. There was no middle ground. 7 weeks passed. 7 weeks of the strangest routine Elias had ever lived. Every morning at 9, Leora would arrive at his house. She'd knock twice, wait for him to answer, then slip inside quietly like they were sharing some kind of secret. Which they were. She'd wash her hands. Sit in the rocking chair by the window. And Milo would latch on like it was the most natural thing in the world. Elias would make coffee and try not to think too hard about how bizarre this all was. At first he couldn't even stay in the room. It felt too intimate. Too strange. He'd busy himself in the kitchen or check emails in the other room, ears tuned for any sound that something was wrong. But nothing was ever wrong. Milo ate. Milo grew. Milo thrived. The second feeding happened at 1 in the afternoon. Leora would take her lunch break and drive to his house. 20 minutes there, 20 minutes feeding, 20 minutes back. She never complained about the drive. Never mentioned how it cut into her own day. The third feeding was at 6 in the evening. By week 3, Elias stopped leaving the room. He'd sit on the couch with his laptop, pretending to work while stealing glances at his son. Watching Milo's little hands grip Leora's finger. Watching his eyes drift closed in contentment. It was working. God, it was really working. Milo gained weight every single week. His muscle tone improved. His eyes got brighter. He started reaching for toys, babbling at sounds, smiling at faces. All the things the doctor said he should be doing but couldn't because he'd been too weak from starvation. Now he was strong. And it was all because of her. By week 5 something shifted. Leora started staying after the evening feeding. Just for a few minutes at first. She'd hold Milo while Elias cooked dinner and they'd talk. Small talk. Work stuff. Weather. Nothing important. Then one night Elias made too much pasta. You want to stay? He offered. I mean, you've been driving back and forth 3 times a day. Least I can do is feed you actual food. She hesitated. It's just dinner, he added quickly. Not weird. Just food. Okay. Thank you. They ate at his small kitchen table. Milo sat in his bouncer between them, chewing on a teething ring, completely content. He looks so different, Leora said softly, watching Milo. From that first day in the parking lot. Remember? He was so tiny. So angry at the world. I remember. Elias twirled pasta on his fork. I thought I was going to lose him. But you didn't. No. We didn't. The word "we" hung in the air. They didn't talk about it. Didn't acknowledge what it meant. But it was there. Dinner became a routine too. 3 nights a week Leora would stay. She'd help clean up. Sometimes she'd read to Milo while Elias did dishes. Sometimes they'd just sit on the couch in comfortable silence, watching the baby play on his mat. It felt normal. That terrified Elias. One night, Milo fell asleep in Leora's arms after his feeding. She looked down at him with such pure tenderness that Elias had to look away because it hurt something deep in his chest. You're good at this, he said quietly. I had practice. Her voice was soft. For 11 days. I'm sorry you lost her. I'm sorry you lost Sarah. They sat in that shared grief for a moment. Two people who'd both loved and lost. Two people who'd been broken by life and were somehow finding a way to piece themselves back together. This is strange, isn't it? Leora said. What we're doing. The strangest thing I've ever been part of. Do you think we're doing the right thing? Elias looked at Milo. At his son, healthy and peaceful and alive. I think we're doing the only thing we can do. She nodded. Me too. As the weeks passed, something neither of them expected started to happen. They stopped being strangers brought together by crisis. They became something else. Not quite friends. Not quite family. Something in between that had no name. Leora learned that Elias hated mornings and loved bad action movies. That he talked to Sarah's picture every night before bed. That he cried in the shower where Milo couldn't hear him. Elias learned that Leora read mystery novels and drank tea instead of coffee. That she visited Maya's grave every Sunday. That she sang old lullabies in a language her grandmother taught her. They learned each other. And Milo, caught in the middle of this strange arrangement, simply loved them both. He'd light up when Leora arrived. He'd reach for Elias when he needed comfort. He didn't know this wasn't normal. He just knew he was safe and fed and loved. And maybe that was enough. One evening after Leora left, Elias stood in Milo's doorway watching his son sleep. 3 months ago, he'd been terrified every night that Milo wouldn't wake up. Now he was terrified of something different. He was terrified of how much he'd started to depend on Leora. Not just for feeding Milo. For everything. It happened on a Tuesday. Leora didn't show up for the morning feeding. Elias checked his phone. No text. No call. Nothing. He tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. A cold panic settled into his chest. In 12 weeks she'd never missed a feeding. Not once. She was more reliable than sunrise. More dependable than anything in his life. So where was she? Milo started fussing. He was hungry. Elias tried a bottle just in case, but Milo pushed it away and screamed. The sound ripped through the quiet house like a siren. I know, buddy, Elias said, rocking him. I know. She'll be here. She's just late. But she wasn't just late. By 1 in the afternoon, Elias was frantic. He called her office. They said she'd called in sick. He called her cell again. Voicemail. He even drove past her house, but her car wasn't there. She'd vanished. By evening, Milo was inconsolable. He wouldn't take the bottle. Wouldn't take formula. He just screamed and screamed until his face was purple and his voice went hoarse. Elias was right back where he'd started 3 months ago. On the kitchen floor. Helpless. Desperate. Watching his son suffer and unable to fix it. Please, he whispered to his phone. Leora, please. Where are you? No answer. That night he didn't sleep. He paced the house with Milo crying in his arms, mind racing through terrible possibilities. Was she hurt? In the hospital? Had something happened to her? Or worse, had she just left? Decided this was too much and disappeared? Thursday morning, HR called him into the office. Miss Chen has taken medical leave, they said. Cool. Professional. We can't disclose details, but her projects are being redistributed. Can you take on some of her accounts? Is she okay? Elias interrupted. We can't discuss. Please. I need to know if she's safe. The HR director's face softened slightly. She's not in danger. That's all I can tell you. Elias left work immediately and drove to Leora's house. He knocked on the door. Art. Desperate. Leora. I know you're in there. Please. Nothing. He knocked again. Please. Milo needs you. I need to know you're okay. Please just open the door. Silence. Then finally the lock clicked. The door opened slowly. Leora stood there looking like a ghost. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Her hair was a mess. She wore the same clothes she'd worn 2 days ago. Elias. Her voice was barely a whisper. You shouldn't be here. What happened? Where have you been? Milo won't eat and I've been losing my mind and... I'm pregnant. The words hit him like a physical blow. He stood there on her doorstep, mouth open, brain completely frozen. What? I'm pregnant. 14 weeks. But how, are you? She stepped aside. He walked in on shaking legs. On her coffee table were ultrasound pictures. Prenatal vitamins. A positive pregnancy test. The evidence of an impossible truth. I wasn't with anyone, Leora said, her voice hollow. I haven't been with anyone since my divorce 4 years ago. But I had frozen embryos. From before Maya. From when we thought we'd have a big family. She sank onto the couch. My doctor told me they weren't viable anymore. That after 6 years frozen, the chances of them surviving were almost zero. But when I started relactating, I had to take hormones. Strong ones. And apparently, her voice broke. Apparently one of them survived. My body thought it was preparing to nurse, but it was also preparing to carry. I didn't know until last week when I went in for routine blood work. Elias sat down hard. His legs wouldn't hold him anymore. You're pregnant, he repeated stupidly. Yes. With a 6-year-old frozen embryo. Yes. That's a miracle. A nightmare. I don't even know anymore. She wrapped her arms around herself, trembling. I can't keep nursing Milo. The pregnancy hormones, the risk, it's not safe. I have to stop immediately. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Elias. She broke down completely. Sobs tore through her body like earthquakes. Elias stared at the ultrasound pictures. A tiny bean-shaped shadow. A heartbeat visible even in the still image. Life where there shouldn't be any. Just like Milo. Have you told anyone? He asked quietly. No. I can barely process it myself. After Maya, after losing her, I never thought I can't do this. What if I lose this baby too? What if my body fails again? What if? Hey. Elias moved closer. Look at me. She lifted her tear-stained face. You're not alone this time, he said. What? You saved my son when nobody else could. When I was completely alone and drowning. You showed up. You took a risk. You gave everything. He picked up one of the ultrasound pictures. Now it's my turn. Let me help you save yours. Leora stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. You don't have to. I know. But I'm going to anyway. Why? He looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman who'd sacrificed everything for a child that wasn't hers. Because that's what family does. The word hung in the air between them. Family. Not by blood. Not by marriage. Not by anything traditional or normal. But family anyway. The playground was alive with sound. Children laughing. Swings creaking. Parents calling out warnings to be careful. The late afternoon sun painted everything golden, warm, perfect. Elias pushed 2 swings at once, 1 hand for each child. On the left, Milo squealed with joy. 2 years old now, chubby legs kicking wildly, his voice loud and fearless. Higher, Daddy. Higher. On the right, 8-month-old Sienna sat secure in a baby swing, her dark eyes wide with wonder, watching the world move around her. She didn't squeal like Milo. She just observed everything with quiet curiosity. Not too high, Leora called from the bench nearby. She was smiling, but her hand rested protectively on her slightly rounded belly. Old fears died hard. I got them, Elias called back. We're good. And they were. Good. After everything, somehow, impossibly, they were good. Milo had weaned at 13 months, just like Dr. Reeves recommended. It was hard at first. He cried for Leora for a week straight. But slowly, gently, they transitioned him to whole milk and solid foods. He thrived anyway. Because by then, Leora wasn't just the woman who fed him. She was the woman who read him bedtime stories. Who kissed his scraped knees. Who sang silly songs during diaper changes. She was Lily. That's what Milo called her. Not Mama. Never Mama. That name was reserved for the picture of Sarah that sat on his nightstand. But Lily was real. Lily was here. Lily was home. Sienna had arrived 5 months ago after a pregnancy that terrified Leora every single day. Elias had been there for every appointment. Every ultrasound. Every 3 a.m. panic attack when Leora woke up convinced something was wrong. When Sienna was born, screaming and healthy and absolutely perfect, they both cried so hard the nurses got worried. She's here, Leora had whispered, holding her daughter for the first time. She's really here. She is, Elias had said, squeezing her hand. You did it. They'd moved in together 6 months before Sienna was born. Just made sense. Elias was at her house every day anyway, helping with nursery setup, grocery shopping, doctor visits. And Leora was at his house every evening with Milo. One night she joked, we basically live together already. We're just paying for 2 houses. 2 weeks later, she moved into his spare bedroom. People asked questions, of course. Co-workers, neighbors, family members who didn't understand why Elias's boss was suddenly living with him and very pregnant. They kept the answers vague. Old friends helping each other out. Co-parenting situation. It's complicated. And it was complicated. But it also wasn't. They weren't a couple. They slept in separate bedrooms. They didn't kiss or hold hands or do any of the things romantic partners did. But they were family. Elias helped with midnight feedings when Sienna wouldn't settle. Leora helped with toddler tantrums when Milo tested boundaries. They grocery shopped together, paid bills together, made decisions together. They were partners in the strangest, most unconventional way possible. And it worked. Milo climbed off the swing and ran to the sandbox, his little legs pumping with energy. Elias followed, keeping watch while Leora lifted Sienna from the baby swing. "Look, Daddy!" Milo shouted, holding up a fistful of sand. "Castle. That's amazing, buddy. Don't throw it, okay?" Milo immediately threw it. Elias sighed. Leora laughed. "He's your son," she said, settling on the bench with Sienna in her lap. "He's our son," Elias corrected quietly. The words hung there for a moment. Leora looked at him with soft eyes. "Yeah, he is." Sienna grabbed at Leora's necklace, babbling nonsense sounds. Milo ran over and planted a wet, sandy kiss on the baby's head. "Love you, Cece," he declared, then ran off again. Leora's eyes filled with tears. "Happy ones this time." "I never thought I'd have this," she whispered. "After Maya, I thought I was done. That part of my life was just over." "I know the feeling," Elias said, thinking of Sarah. Of the future they'd planned that died with her. "But look at us now." Leora gestured at the children. "At the playground. At this strange, beautiful, cobbled-together life. We didn't get the families we planned. We got something completely different." "Is it enough?" Elias asked. She looked at him. Really looked at him. "It's more than enough. It's everything." As the sun started to set, they gathered the kids. Milo protested leaving. Sienna fell asleep in her carrier. They walked to the car together looking like any normal family. And maybe they were. Just not in the traditional way. That night, after baths and bottles and bedtime stories, after both children were asleep in their rooms, Elias and Leora sat on the porch. They did this most nights. Just sitting. Just existing. Just being grateful. "Do you ever think about that day?" Leora asked quietly. "The break room?" "Every single day," Elias admitted. "Would you change it if you could?" He thought about it. Really thought about it. That impossible moment that shocked him to his core. That decision that terrified him. That risk that could have destroyed everything. "No," he said finally. "I wouldn't change a single thing." Leora leaned her head on his shoulder. "Not romantic. Just comfortable. Just family." "Me neither." Inside, a baby monitor crackled softly with Sienna's sleepy sounds. Down the hall, Milo's gentle snoring drifted through the open door. Two children who almost weren't here. Two adults who found each other in the darkest moment of their lives. One impossible decision that changed everything. Above them, stars emerged in the darkening sky. The world kept turning. And in a small house on a quiet street, for people who'd all lost everything, built something that looked exactly like home. Not perfect. Not traditional. Not what anyone planned. But real. And loved. And enough.